Hilchos Temidin Umusafin Perek Shlishi, the laws of the daily and additional services and sacrifices in the temple, chapter 3. We're moving on to discuss some of the other services that were performed in the temple every single day, some twice a day. Specifically today we're going to be discussing three things: the ketores, the incense, the menorah, the lighting of the menorah every day, and the chavitin, the pancakes of the Kohen Gadol that were brought also every day. The Rambam begins, halacha aleph, mitzvah saseh. It's a positive commandment, lahaktir hakteres al mizbach hazav shabahechol pa'amayim b'chol yom, to offer the incense on the golden altar, the smaller altar inside the temple structure, twice every day. Baboiker ubeinu arbayim, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. Shenemar, as it says clearly in the verse, v'hiktir olav Aaron ketores sabim. Aaron should offer a ketores, an incense of spices. And then it says, baboiker, every morning, as well as behetiva yasaneres yaktirana, he should also offer it when he lights the candles, which is interpreted in the Talmud and halachically to mean also in the afternoon. So you bring it once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Lo yiktire baboiker. If you didn't offer it in the morning, yaktirano bein arbayim, you should still bring it in the afternoon. Nafilu hayu mizidin, even if they were purposely neglectful, negligent in the morning and they didn't bring it, you still bring it in the afternoon. In fact, when we inaugurate the golden altar, the first time we use it, we make sure to use it with the incense of the afternoon. Halacha beis, kama maktirin mimeno b'chol yom. How much do we offer of the incense every day? Mishkal meya dinarin, the amount equivalent to the weight of 100 silver coins. Chamishim baboiker v'chamishim bein ha'arbayim, which we divide in half. 50, half of the 100 in the morning, and half of the 100 weight in the afternoon. By the way, all the laws relating to how to make the incense was already explained in the beginning of this book in the laws of the utensils of the Beis HaMikdash. Here we're focusing on the avodah, on the service of offering the incense, how we go about offering it. It says that Rambam mizbeach shenekar, if for whatever reason the golden mizbeach in the altar was uprooted from its place, maktirin hakteres bimkaimai, we still offer the ketores in its place. It's unique to this service because let's say the menorah or the shulchan, if we didn't have the actual table of the menorah, you couldn't just light the candles in its place or put the bread in its place. They had to have the actual utensil. Here, it's about the place. If in the process of offering the incense, some of the incense pops off of the mizbeach, afilu kratin sheba, even the actual grains of the spices, ein machzirin oisan, we don't put them back. Whatever's on it is on it, whatever goes off is left off. Halacha gimel, a special law related to the ketores, when the Kohanim would offer the incense in the heichal every day, porshin kol ha'am min ha'heichal, everybody had to leave the actual temple structure. This is the heichal, the actual structure, as well as they had to leave umibein ha'ulam v'la mizbeach, anywhere between the ulam, which is the outer chamber of the temple structure, and the mizbeach. So this whole area was completely emptied of Kohanim. The ketores was performed independently by one Kohen alone. Nobody should be there until the person offering the incense leaves. Symbolically or mystically, the Rabbi would talk about how this represents the idea that ketores is the connection of yichida to yichida, the soul, the innermost core of the soul of the Jewish people to Hashem. So nobody else could be there. Not only on Yom Kippur, every single day. So too, any burnt offering whose blood had to be sprinkled inside the temple structure. When the Kohen who was in charge of that would go inside, everybody had to leave the whole area, again between the ulam and the mizbeach, empty until he leaves. Shanemar, as the verse says, this verse is said about, in the context is Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol is bringing the ketores, but it says, V'chol adam lo yiyeh ba'oyel mayed, no person should be inside the tent of meeting, when he comes inside to achieve atonement inside the holy area. The next words are ad seisai, till he leaves. And even though this verse is talking about Yom Kippur, says the Rambam binyan av, we employ the halachic principle of binyan av, which means you draw a general principle from one verse to every other area in the Torah. L'chol kapara shabakayda shelo yehei sham adam. Any atonement achieved inside in the holy space, nobody should be there, only the kohen who is involved in the service. Halacha dalid, ketzad seder haktaras hakteres b'chol yom. How exactly did the order of the offering of the incense go every day? So the Rambam says, Misha zacha b'dishon mizbeach hapnimi, the kohen who won the raffle to clean out the inner mizbeach. As we'll see tomorrow at length, there was 4 raffles every day in the temple, and part of one of the raffles was one kohen would be given the right to clean out this Mizbeach from the leftovers of the incense from the day before. So whoever merited that right, Nichnas b'kli kodesh utni hayashmai, he would come in with a holy utensil called the tni. B'shel zav haya, it was a golden utensil. Umachzik kabayim b'chetzi, and it held 2.5 kav. A kav is a dry measurement. It held 2.5 of these measurements. Maniach hatni ba'aretz lefanov. He would put down the tni on the ground in front of him. V'chayfin b'yadav ha'efer v'hapecham shebesoicham mizbeach, and with his hands he would scoop up all the ash and all the coal that had collected, the soot, inside the mizbeach as a result of the previous ketores. V'noisen l'sei chatni, and he would put this ash and coal inside the tni. Uba'achreina, and then at the end, mechabed es hashar l'seicha, he would kind of sweep in after taking a bunch of scoops. There's not so much ash left to take another scoop, so you would kind of sweep the rest inside the tni. He would leave this tni inside the heichal and go out. Then, the Kohen for today, who merited the rights to actually offer the ketores, noitel kli malek ketores gadush, he would take a utensil full of overflowing spices, the incense itself. The kisoy hayaloyat had to cover this utensil, ubazach hayashmai. It was called the bazach, that's the bazach over there. The noisen habazach b'seich kli acher v'kaf hayashmai. He would put the entire bazach inside another utensil, which was called the kaf, spoon-like utensil. Umechase asakaf bebeged katan. He would cover this spoon-like utensil with a small piece of cloth. V'oichez akaf beyadai, holding this kaf in hand. V'nichnas imay echad b'machta shal eish beyadai, accompanied by another Kohen who was holding a fire pan in his hand, which he had gotten from the Mizbeach, as we mentioned yesterday, and the Rambam repeats again today. The ketzad choyse. How do you use this fire pan to fill it up with the coals needed for the incense? Zesha zacha b'machta, whichever Kohen merited the right through the raffle, which we'll discuss tomorrow. The one who got the right to the fire pan, loikeach machta shel kesef v'oile l'reish hamizbeach. He takes a silver pan, goes to the top of the mizbeach, umefanes hagecholim elach ve'elach, moves the coals this way and that way, v'neitel min hagecholim shenisaklu b'ma'aracha shniya. And he takes from the coals the ones that are fully burnt in the second fire pile. Yesterday we saw there was the big fire pile, the first one for sacrifices, the second one was for the ketores. He would dig into that pile deep and pick out a bunch of coals from that pile with the silver fire pan. He'd go down and pour them into another fire pan, a golden one. If in the process of this pouring over, some of the coals spread out, about a kav measurement or less, you just sweep them in to the channel that ran through the temple courtyard. And on Shabbos you would cover them with a bowl, the big psachter that we mentioned yesterday. If more than a kav measurements of coals spread out in this process of pouring over from the silver to the gold, you have to re-scoop it and get the proper amount in the pan. Halacha Vav, we mentioned this psachter just now, says the Rambam, Shleisha Dvarim Haya Psachter Meshamesh. The psachter, the big bowl, was used for 3 things in the temple. It was used to cover coals or a discovered rodent on Shabbos, so that we're going to take care of the impurity later, but you'd cover it for now. And also, as we saw yesterday, it was used for taking down the big ash pile every day from the Mizbeach. Going back to the order of the ketores, Halacha Zayin, now that the Kohanim are ready to go in with the coals and the incense, the person who began the process of cleaning out the inner altar goes in front of them, and he picks up again that tni, that utensil which had the ashes from the mizbeach, which he left inside for a moment. He goes back in and gets them, prostrates himself, bows down to Hashem and leaves. The person who has the fire pan with the coals, he piles up the new coals on top of the inner altar, and flattens them down with the bottom of the pan. He bows down and also leaves. The person who's actually holding the incense, the spoon, he takes the little utensil, the bazach, from inside the spoon, and hands it off to a friend or a relative. And he checks if some of the incense spilled out into the outer kaf. The friend or the relative puts into his open handfuls whatever ketores had spread out, together with the incense that's actually inside the bazach. He bows down and he also leaves. And now all that's left is the Kohen who's about to offer the ketores alone. The Kohanim who were supervising would tell this Kohen who was about to offer the Ketores, he Zoher, be careful, Shalai Taschil Milfanecha, don't begin right in front of you. Shalai Tikav, otherwise you'll get burnt. If you pour the Ketores straight down into the burning coals, the fire or the steam will come right back and burn the Kohen. You have to stretch your hand out and start from further away from you and pour it and gradually bring your hands to yourself. Just a good advice that they used to give him, and the Rebbe once said how sometimes good advice or things that keep us safe can become a halacha. In this case, it became a halacha. They had to tell the Kohen to start not from close to him, but from further from him. Umaschil, he begins, umashlich hakteres ala eish benachas. He would throw the incense onto the fire slowly, kemisha meraked soiles, like a person who is sifting flour, ad shetisradid al kol eish, till it was flattened on the entire fire. By the way, as an aside, the Rebbe says also there's a practical reason why they had to give this advice to the Kohen about how not to burn himself. Because if you think about it, there was other times the Kohen could have gotten burnt. When you're on the altar offering sacrifices, you could also get burnt. Why didn't they give him advice there? So the Rebbe says because on the altar there were always other Kohanim. You could always ask for help. Here you're alone. So because you're alone, we have to give you maximum safety instructions before you go inside. The person who was offering the Ketores cannot begin the procedure till the appointee. As we'll see in chapter 6, there was a special person who was called the Memuna. He was in charge of overseeing the daily service till he gives the instruction, offer. If it was the high priest who was offering the Ketores, because he can do that whenever he wants, and also on Yom Kippur he would do it himself. Omer loy, HaMemuna, the appointed person, would tell the Kohen Gadol, Ishi Kohen Gadol hakter. He would do it in respect. My master, the Kohen Gadol, please offer the Ketores. Once he gives that instruction, everybody leaves. That the offerer offer the incense, bow down, and go out. That covers the laws related to the daily Ketores that was brought twice a day. Now we move on to the menorah. It says that cleaning out the lamps of the menorah, and lighting the candles, the lamps. In the morning and in the afternoon, mitzvah saseh is a positive commandment. The Rambam has a unique position that the menorah was lit twice a day. The simple reading of the verse suggests, as Rashi holds, that it was only done once a day. The Rambam says it was done twice a day. Both in the morning and in the afternoon, it's a positive mitzvah to light the menorah. Shenemar, as it says, Yarech oisoi aharon uvanav, Aaron and his sons should set up, kindle the menorah. The hadlakas haneira is doicha es hashabes ve'es hatuma. Kekarbonis shekavu alahen zman. This avodah, this service of lighting the lamps, was so important it would override Shabbos. It overrides ritual impurity like any other sacrifice that has a set time. Shenemar, because it says lahalois ner tamid. It's a mitzvah to light these candles constantly, in whatever situation, whatever day. How much oil was placed in each lamp of the menorah? Chatzi loig shemen, a half of a loig of oil, about 6 to 7 ounces. Shenemar, as it says, may erev ad boker. You have to light the menorah from evening to morning. Now, according to the Rambam, that doesn't mean that that's when you lit the menorah. You lit it in the evening and in the morning. But these words, may erev ad boker, is a sign for how much oil there should be in the menorah. Tein le kamida sheyiyeh doilek me erev ad boker. Put enough oil that would last from evening to morning. Like the golden altar, which was only inaugurated in the afternoon, the menorah also, when you're using it for the first time, it's inaugurated by lighting all 7 of its lamps in the afternoon. Mahu dishun ha-menorah. We just mentioned before cleaning out the menorah. What's cleaning out the menorah? Says the Rambam, kol ner shekava, just before the Kohen begins to light the menorah, he needs to check any lamp that already went out. Meiser apsila v'chol hashemen shabaneru mekanchei. He removes the wick and all the oil that is left over in the lamp and cleans it out. He puts in another wick, and again the proper measurement of oil, the half of the leg of oil. And whatever he removed from the lamp, he throws in the place of the ashes next to the mizbeach, which we discussed yesterday, in where all the ashes from the inner and outer altars would go. That's where also the cleaned out stuff from the menorah would also go. Umadlik ner shekava, and then he relights the candle that went out. V'hadlakas haneira is hi hatavasam. Says the Rambam, don't get confused with the language of the Torah, where sometimes we use the word hadlaka, which means lighting, and sometimes we use the word hatava, which can usually be translated as cleaning or preparation. My understanding, says the Rambam, is that hadlaka and hatava are the same thing. They both mean kindling the lamps. And so you're kindling it every time you come in the morning and the afternoon. You first clean out the lamps, then you kindle whatever lamps needed to be relit. Any lamp which was discovered not to have been extinguished, he fixes it, restore it. Halacha Yud Gimel Ner Ma'aravi Shekava, the western lamp, if the western lamp goes out, and according to the Rambam, at least in his Yad HaChazaka, the western lamp is the middle lamp. According to the Rambam, in the beginning of this book, he told us that the menorah was positioned north to south. In other words, if you're standing in the east, when you come inside the temple, you're looking at all 7 lamps of the menorah. So there was really no western lamp, because they're all parallel to east and west. Nevertheless, the middle one was called the Ner Ma'aravi, the western one, because it was directly correlated to the Holy of Holies, and all the other lamps would actually face towards that lamp. The wicks were positioned towards that lamp, so that's called the Ner Ma'aravi. If the Ner Ma'aravi goes out, Ein madlikin noisei achar dishun ela mimizbeach hachitzon. You would only light it after cleaning it out with fire brought from the outer altar. You couldn't just relight it. You had to bring fire from the mizbeach. Any other lamp that went out, you light it from a fellow lamp. If any other lamp was still lit, you can light it one from the other. How do you light one from the other? You drag the wick from one lamp to the other one, light it, and put it back. The actual bowls, the lamps, are set into the menorah. You couldn't move the lamp, you had to move the wick. And it would be degrading to use another source of light, another type of candle. So you have to use from one wick to the other, you pull the wick out, light the other one. But the Ner Ma'aravi had a special law that it was lit from the Mizbeach. And the Rabbi has a little bit of a discussion whether this is a halacha that relates to the menorah or to the Mizbeach. Is it that the menorah's western lamp must be lit from the Mizbeach, or that the Mizbeach must be the source for the lighting of the Ner Ma'aravi? And the difference would be if for whatever reason there was no fire on the Mizbeach. Let's just say. So if it's a law in the menorah, you have to light the menorah from the Mizbeach, then you're kind of stuck. But if it's a law in the Mizbeach, so it's not connected to the menorah. And the Rebbe seems to understand that, at least in the Rambam's position, that it's related to the menorah from the fact that the Rambam brings it in the laws related to the menorah. Yesterday was all about the Mizbeach, and Rambam didn't mention it there. He mentions it here. Rashi might have another opinion on that. Halacha Tezvav Kol Apsiles She'asr Lahadlik Bahen B'Shabbos. Any wicks which cannot be used for Shabbos candles, Asr Lahadlik Bahen B'Mikdash B'Menorah, cannot be used in the temple as menorah candles. Shenemar, because it says Lahalois Ner Tamid. The mitzvah is to light a candle constantly, which from this verse we infer lahalois, to elevate the lamp. That means shetahei shalheves oila me'eleha. The type of wick that you use should be conducive to the flame. It allows the flame to rise on its own. It doesn't have to be constantly supported. And those are the wicks that are kosher for Shabbos candles, the ones that pull the fuel very nicely. The Rebbe would always quote these words, shalheves oila me'eleha, as a call also to action in terms of service of Hashem. That we cannot rely on other people to constantly light us up. We use role models, we use sources of inspiration, but in the end they have to give us fire in a way that our fire rises from ourselves. We become self-inspired enough that we can continue the work with our own motivation to do what we have to do in the service of Hashem. When the Kohen cleaned out or prepared the candles and lit them twice a day, he wouldn't do it all in one shot. He would light 5 out of the 7 candles and pause. Do another service in the middle. And then come back in and light the other 2. To make noise in the temple courtyard, to give attention to this lighting of the menorah. The Rebbe has an interesting nuance in the Rambam where he understands that the Rambam is referring to both in the morning and in the afternoon lightings, even though in the Talmud the simple meaning would be that this was only done in the morning, the dividing of 5 and 2. But according to the Rambam, the dividing of 5 and 2 was done both in the morning and in the afternoon, which is why he brings a different reason than what's given in the Talmud, because this reason about making noise and drawing attention to the menorah applies both in the morning and in the afternoon. Halacha Yud Zayin Kol Ner Shekava. Any lamp that extinguished, Madlikin Oisei Miner Acher Me'en Kamesh Shabiyarnu, we light from the other one, as we explained. The Ketzad say that Atava, what was the order of lighting the menorah? Whichever Kohen won the right that day with the raffle to clean out the menorah, he comes in with a utensil in his hand, the kuz shmoy, it was called the kuz. B'shel zav haya, it was gold, doime lekisa in gadol, like a big jug. That would be the kuz. over there. Midashin bayas hapsilos shekavu. He uses it to clean out the wicks that were extinguished. V'sashem and anisha bener, and all the oil that was remaining in the lamps. Umetiv chamisha neris. He lights 5 candles. V'maniach hakuz sham. Lifnei hamenayra. He leaves the kuz in front of the menorah. Al malah shniya mishalish malish alefanah, on the second of the 3rd steps, of the 3 steps that lead to it. He would leave it right over here on this step. V'yoytze, and he goes out. And after the service was done, the pausing intermittent service was done, nichnas, he comes back in, and he lights the other 2 candles. Takes the kuz in his hand, prostrates himself, and leaves. And that concludes the laws related to the menorah. Halacha Yud Ches, the 3rd discussion in this chapter, is the chavitin. Chavite kohen gadol, the pancakes brought every day by the kohen gadol, mitzvah sasela hakrivan b'chol yom. It's a positive commandment to offer them every day, mechza baboiker. Half of it in the morning, im tamid shal shachar, together with the morning sacrifice, umechza ben arbaim, tamid shal ben arbaim, and half in the afternoon with the afternoon daily sacrifice. V'lishasan ba'afiyasan deichen es haShabbos ve'asatuma, kneading them, baking them, overrides Shabbos and ritual impurity, kechol karban shekavua leizman, like any sacrifice that has a set time. Shenemar, because it says tufine, they have to be baked. That's literally what it means. But the word tufine could also be interpreted sheteheina'ah. The baking should be beautiful. It should never be baked the day before. You bake it anew every day, even on Shabbos. Besides the fact that if you're going to bake it in the evening before, it's going to become disqualified from staying overnight. Because the pan in which you bake these chavitin, or you fry them, is a holy utensil, as we explained, and anything which remains in a holy utensil overnight becomes disqualified. You test tchina sultan beherkedan, grinding and sifting the flour for the chavitin, bachutz, was done outside the temple premises, ve'enan deichen as Shabbos, and did not override Shabbos. That could be done before. The baking was on the day, but the preparations before. Chav kohen shehikriv nechza b'shachris. Consider the following scenario: you have a kohen gadol who offers half of his chavitin in the morning. Umeis nitma enelad lemun, and in the middle of the day he dies, becomes ritually impure, or gets a blemish. He can no longer serve. Uminu kohen acher tachtav, and they appoint on the day another kohen gadol comes into his place. Lo yavi chatzi isarin mi beisai v'lo chatzi isarin shal rishon. So the kohen gadol sacrifice every day was from an isarin of flour, which they would divide into 2 half isarins. So this new kohen gadol might think, okay, let me bring only a half an isarin from my house, or I'll use the half left over from the first guy. No. Elamevi isarin shalim. He needs to bring a new full isarin v'chaytzehu and divide it. Bring half of his new full isarin. Umakriv mechza avid. He brings half, and the other half is destroyed, is lost. Nimtzu shnei chatzayim krevim shnei chatzayim avdim, which means, in conclusion, 2 halves will be brought, be offered, and 2 halves will go and just be destroyed. Ve'elu shnei chatzayim avdim. What do you do with the 2 halves that are going to be destroyed? Manichin eisnamat shetu ubar tzurasan. You leave them until their form is ruined, which means until they become disqualified halachically. The yaitz the beis hasreif, and then they're burnt in a special burning place in the temple. The same would be done even if the kohen gadol himself didn't become impure or ineligible. If the flour itself got lost or became impure, you would bring a new isarin, divide it, bring half, and the other half would be destroyed. Where would we burn them? In the temple courtyard. Chav beis, meis kohen gadol b'shachris, achar shehikriv chatzi isarin v'lo minu kohen acher. The previous scenario was where in the middle of the day they succeeded in installing a new kohen gadol. What if a kohen gadol died in the morning, and they didn't have a chance to appoint a new one by the time the afternoon time comes around? Mevi'in hayershin isarin shalim. So the heirs of the kohen gadol. And the Rebbe wants to say that heirs can mean both boys or girls. Usually it's about sons. It could be sons or daughters. Whatever heirs the kohen gadol have, they bring a full isarin, avur kaparasai, for the atonement of the kohen gadol. These are the Rambam's own words. He adds them to the Talmud because he's communicating to us why any of the heirs could bring the sacrifice. Since it's for atonement of the kohen gadol, it's not for them, it's for their father, so it doesn't matter who it is, bringing it in his place. But they make it into pancakes. This was the only time they would bring a full isarin as an offering, not a half. What if the high priest died in the morning before even bringing the first half? And they didn't have a chance to install a new kohen gadol. Makrivin Yisarin Shalim Baboiker, the Yisarin Shalim Bein Arbayim. They bring double, a full Yisarin in the morning and a full one in the afternoon till they install a new Kohen Gadol. In this scenario, even though there's double the flour, you don't double the oil or the levina quantities. You put aside the regular amounts: 3 lug of oil, 3 fingers full of frankincense, a leg and a half of oil, and the half of the 3 fingers full of the frankincense goes for the morning yisarin. And the 1.5 lug of shemen that remains of oil, and the half of the kmitza of frankincense which remains, goes together with the yisarin that's brought in the afternoon.